Welcome back to Accelerate Long Beach, the quarterly economic forum from the Long Beach Economic Partnership. I'm David Summers, publisher of the Long Beach Post and the Long Beach Business Journal. We're here for our next panel. We've got a great panel. I'm not going to go through their entire bios. Please go to lbp.org/accelerate to read more about them. These are three extraordinary leaders with extraordinary backgrounds, with extraordinary commitments to Long Beach, doing great things for our city. lbep.org/accelerate. But let me introduce you first to Mandy Vaughn. She is the CEO and founder of GXO Inc., which she founded earlier this year to accelerate the pace of change across the space industry. Dan Abeer is the Director of Sales and Marketing for M4 Engineering. And we also have Lars Hoffman, who is the Senior Vice President of Rocket Lab, where he's responsible for the global business and government affairs at Rocket Lab. Mandy, I want to start with you and telling us a little bit more about your work, your company, your history. And for all of you, is how did you land in Long Beach? Why is it important that your business is here and why you chose here?
Sure, so I can answer that in kind of two halves. First is why GXO? So I had the absolute privilege of working with Vox Space, which is a subsidiary of Virgin Orbit for the last 4 years, and then I was with Virgin Galactic and Virgin Orbit for years before that. So really got to see the stand-up of Virgin Orbit here in Long Beach, which was amazing unto itself. But why GXO was watching this whole new ecosystem of these commercial space companies all over the LA basin in Southern California that are trying to get into this government and national security sector. How do we help them strategically, technically, from the management side? And I realized we really need to accelerate the pace of change across this community. And so why Long Beach? Long Beach is just kind of the perfect sweet spot within this space beach, as we've already talked about today, in Silicon Beach, that as companies are ready to start to scale, where do they go? When you're moving from the garage to where do you need an actual footprint to build something? Long Beach is just kind of the sweet spot. So I'm working with a slew of fun commercial startups that are some in that manufacturing state and some about to get there, and they're making those trades right now on where do we want to go, where do we want to be when we grow up. So it's a super exciting time, and I think we're just on the precipice of an amazing run here as an industry and as a community.
Dan, how about you? When we first spoke, you were traveling. You travel quite a bit, but home is here in Long Beach. Company's in Long Beach. Why Long Beach? What's the history? Why here?
Yeah, so our founder is Dr. Miles Baker. He was working at McDonnell Douglas, later Phantom Works. He led the Loads group there, and he decided to go out on his own because he wanted to, do the entrepreneurial thing. He got an SBIR, Small Business Innovation Research Grant, and gradually started building up momentum and actually recruiting interns. Like one of the things that he started, his business model was to bring in students, PhD, master's students, bachelors, and start developing them and grow them into full-blown engineers. So our team is actually, our management team, I think with the exception of one person, actually grew through the internship process at M4. So our engineering services have expanded beyond government work. We do about 70% commercial work, helping companies design, analyze, optimize different vehicles. We also do work with renewable energy. Mandy mentioned startups. We do a lot of work with startups, not just with commercial space, but also urban air mobility, supersonic travel, things of that nature. And it's really a great place because there's a great ecosystem of resources to pull from. So whether it's Cal State Long Beach, as far as a feeder for internships, or being able to even pull from El Segundo or neighboring areas where there's a big aerospace infrastructure historically.
Lars, you've got fascinating career history and personal background. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your trajectory and why Long Beach.
Yeah, great opening there, Dave. So I grew up in this area, actually in Harbor City. My dad was in the Air Force attending school at USC at the time. And so I grew up in this area, going to the Queen Mary, going to the beaches, and fell in love with the area. I followed a similar path going through the Air Force for 26 years, living around the world. When I retired, I came back to this area because of the location, the environment, the climate, but also because this is a concentration of aerospace and defense and space in particular. I was lucky enough to land a job with SpaceX, so I worked there for 4.5 years, watched their dramatic growth during that time, but also learned about a company called Rocket Lab, which was really just starting to take off at that point in time in 2018, transitioning to 2019. Joined Rocket Lab in January of 19 and helped Rocket Lab settle into Long Beach, into our headquarters here, right on the Long Beach airport. And it's an exciting time. The reason that we're here is because of the talent in this area, and that's your most valuable resource for companies like ours. The talent pool here is deep and it's wide, and that's what you need to be successful in a rapidly growing industry that we're in. And so we're very excited and very happy to be here. And we were very welcomed by the Long Beach local government as well as we settled into our new headquarters, and we're up and running full steam.
Somebody, we were speaking earlier about the proximity to LA Air Force Base. I think it's out of sight, out of mind that when you don't have a bunch of runways and jets flying around, you don't realize that the importance of LA Air Force Base. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of the proximity of LA Air Force Base, what's happening there, the connection to the growing Space Force and Space Command? Why is it important to be close to LA Air Force Base? Mandy?
Sure. So no, LA, and I'm an alum of LA Air Force Base. I was up there as a captain for a few years, so it's a great group. It's really the center of procurement for all things space, whether it's rocket, satellite engineering, satellite ops, the ranges. About $9 billion a year of R&D and procurement funding are managed by the staff up there that do a phenomenal job. GPS, communications, space situational awareness. So it's all things that are military space, which is great to have that footprint right here in the middle of all of this in the industrial base, in the ecosystem. But even more so, it's a good tip of the hat to the future of the base and its strength here. The Space Force was stood up back in 2019, and they are now through this summer going to transition the Space and Missile Systems Center to be the Space Systems Command for the Space Force. So they're actually going to be increasing the scope of their responsibility right up the road here at LA Air Force Base. So it's a great group of people with a very important mission, and to have just kind of the hub there to where you can have quick decision making and discussions with the customer base and the technical staff that support them. It's just a great anchor right here within the area too. So I think there's not one of us that don't have, between ourselves and our clients and our support, where we're up there on a regular basis.
I want to talk a little bit about workforce pipeline. Dan, we'll start with you. We've heard a lot today about the rich workforce pipeline and support in finding the people that you need in the types of careers that your companies employ, especially in rapidly emerging industries like yours. So many of the jobs you're trying to fill didn't exist a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. How do you find the talent that you need to fill those jobs? How do you make sure that students, as they're coming through schools, are getting the skills that your companies that need, that the companies that you partner with are getting what they need? Dan, you had a really interesting answer about how deep you're reaching into local schools. Let's start with you about how you're working to get you the people that you need.
Sure. So one of the things that I mentioned earlier to someone when we're behind the set, that a lot of these programs are very long-term, right? So it's not something that you necessarily need, 500 people tomorrow. You need 5 people, then 50, then 500. So playing the long game, trying to develop interest and develop the workforce and develop even the types of education are needed, you need an ecosystem. And so in Long Beach, we have the high schools, we have the middle schools, we have Long Beach Community College, and we have, of course, Cal State Long Beach. So we have that system. And part of our vision is to try and work with the schools in different ways, from middle school through college, by also leveraging each other. So we'll go in and, let's say, work with Sato Academy, which is a STEM-centric school, or CAMS, which is also a STEM-centric school, and we'll work with their robotics team or their RC and drone clubs or the rocketry clubs. But we reach out to the rocketry club at Cal State Long Beach, and we support them while they're also turning around and supporting the rocketry club at Sato, for example. So you start helping each other grow together. And for example, Sato has a STEM-centric camp during the summer. I don't know if it's going to happen this year, but they actually go into middle schools and recruit people and bring them up. So if we can start exposing children, students, boys, girls, people from different backgrounds, then we're able to start growing these capabilities and the interest from a young age. And as I mentioned earlier, M4 tries to do a lot of internships. So bringing in students at an early age to work with us and expose them to technology and what can be done.
So some of the people that are watching today are job seekers. And Lars, you mentioned when we were talking that Rocket Lab's not just looking for rocket scientists.
Right.
All of your companies, all the companies that you work with have a lot of jobs that are not just necessarily propulsion engineers or rocket scientists. So for the job seekers that are watching, for the students that are out there, how would you recommend, what type of jobs do your companies have? What are you looking for? How would people network with your companies, learn about the opportunities that you have? What are you looking for? How do people learn more?
Yeah, the first stop is to go to any of our company's websites. Ours is www.rocketlabusa.com. You can go there. There's a careers tab. You can go there and see all of the open requisitions that we have, the different jobs. And what you'll notice is our openings are across the spectrum, from different trade skills to engineering to finance, legal. So basically everything that you need to run any effective business, we're looking for those skills as well. Now on the trade side, we don't need people that necessarily have worked in space their whole career, but are really good at what they do, whether it's additive manufacturing or working with composites or electronics. We're looking for people who have that skill set and have that experience that we can bring in, and we can teach them how to build space parts. It's just a little bit different twist on maybe something that they've worked on before. We notice people who have automotive experience do quite well in transitioning. It's high technology and it's transferable to different companies. So I'd recommend to everybody go and check out company websites, look for their careers page or their careers tab, go see what the openings are, start reaching out to the recruiters. The recruiters are trying to find you, go and find them, and you guys can start a great conversation.
Mandy, Dan, how about you? Any advice for job seekers or students coming up about how to engage with the companies that you're with or that you partner with?
Well, we've had students, high school students, for example, reach out to us and ask to shadow and come and learn how to do things. So I would say beyond just for a specific job, if you want to learn more about what we do, just reach out to us and ask. We're always happy to educate people. So if a middle school, for example, wants us to come out and talk about what's happening in aerospace, a lot is happening in aerospace, beyond commercial space commercial launch. There's just a lot of activity. And when you tell people that, in 5 to 10 years there are going to be air taxis or flying cars, they look at you like, what is wrong with you? Where did you come up with it? And we can show them the type of activity that's happening. So I would say if you're curious, reach out to websites, look at industries like organizations like AIAA or Vertical Flight Society, and just start, subscribing to them, and you'll learn a lot about opportunities.
I think to double down on that, the other addition I would make are some of the other organizations like Society for Women Engineers, Women in Aerospace, Women in Defense. There's a couple of other organizations like that where you can then have just access to this network that's nationwide and worldwide in many cases, as well as some of the really cool internships that will help match you with a company that maybe you haven't heard of. Like I know some of the big ones local here are the Brooke Owens Fellowship for women that are interested in aviation or aerospace, or the Matthew Isakowitz Fellowship, which is interested in commercial space. Okay. So a lot of our companies are involved in that, to where you can really meet this cohort of students and get access to these companies that maybe you haven't even heard of yet. So there's tons of opportunities. So we're happy to make connections too.
I appreciate that. I want to take a step back about 15 years into the past. About 15 years ago, there was a point when it seems like people were writing off mass manufacturing in Southern California. We were seeing one of the first big things I worked on when I came to Southern California was fighting the BRAC effort to shut down LA Air Force Base. We were seeing the slowdown of the C-17 production line right up here. But there has been such an incredible resurgence. It's very different today from where we were 15 years ago. Why is it so different now? What's happened? Mandy, you talked a little bit about that commercial and defense used to be separate. All three of you work in a space where that is not the case anymore. What's different today from where we were 15 years ago?
I think locally here, a big tip of the hat to SpaceX and what they accomplished over the last 15 years to kind of breathe new life into the space industry, that it's not just about the classic companies anymore. And that changed the thinking a bit in the early 2000s. So between that, coupled with the government policy changes of knowing that they have to open the aperture of how they procure things. They need to be able to accept commercially produced things a lot more efficiently and more rapidly for all of our benefit, not just to create more jobs around the area and help new companies get started, but also to deliver things to what the warfighter out there needs to help maintain our economic base and our national security priorities. So I think it's the coupling of both of those. And I'm so happy to see that, not just here in Long Beach, not just in Long Beach, but in general, because it really is a national security thing that we should all think about. It keeps our economy cooking, right? So I think, and you saw it in some of the earlier briefings, I think Richard had a chart showing the amount of VC money in California. And a lot of that's going to smaller companies that are just now starting to build. So for them to be successful, they need to have access to the talent, the skills, and that industrial base to be able to scale quick. So that's where Long Beach is kind of a special place, and happy to see this clock speed accelerating.
Lars, what's different 15 years ago and from 15 years ago to now in Southern California?
Yeah, there has been some changes at a national level. The National Space Policy made a commitment to the commercial industry to really turn the government from a buyer of hardware to a buyer of services, and that's what's spurred a lot of this growth. Is now commercial industry can develop their technologies and offer their services to the government as a customer, as they do to other customers, commercial customers, or in the government, you got national security and you got civil space with NASA, and we're able to sell our launch services in this case, or our spacecraft services and data services to our government customers, just like commercial customers. So it's really spurred a lot of growth and innovation within the commercial industry that supports the government customers as well as the commercial customers. And I think that's been kind of the thing that created the sea change, and people like SpaceX took full advantage of that as they accelerated their growth with big contracts from NASA, big contracts from national security customers, as well as their global commercial customers.
Dan, how about you?
So one of the things I was thinking about is that aerospace, 15 years ago was mostly divided into defense and commercial, right? And you kind of had those. But today it's just so much more. And like the advent of commercial launch, like Lars was mentioning, as I mentioned, urban air mobility, supersonic, hypersonic travel. There's all of these drones, delivery. It's just exploded. So when I look at the ups and downs of aerospace, it seems to me it's more of a steady growth where one sector might grow a bit faster than the other, but there's really opportunities. And just mentioning again, like urban air mobility, there's like 400 plus startups in that field alone. So the volume, like the ability to work remotely and to integrate, like we're in touch with companies from around the world that are trying to solve all of the world's problems. So I think that's another thing that's changed, is that we've become a much smaller planet in the last 15 years.
Just a couple last questions for this excellent panel. And again, please do go to lbep.org/accelerate to read more about our panelists, to learn more about their companies. Please check out they are hiring. They're looking for the next generation of talent and continuing to engage here in Long Beach. I do want to talk about something that was in the news last week. Last week, the Senate passed the U.S. Innovation and Competition Act, which at $250 billion would be one of the largest federal investment in R&D since the end of World War II. It has significant implications here in Long Beach for the companies that you're with and that you work with. What do you think that this means for Long Beach? Mandy, you want to start?
Sure. I think it's the coupling between this bill, a lot of talk with the infrastructure, as well as the baseline Space Force budget. I think all three of those will have significant impacts here in Long Beach. Like one statistic that's kind of fun, so the Space Force's budget had an increase of 13% in its R&D budget. That's huge, right? And that's all the investments in new systems and new technologies and a lot of these new services and new companies to bring things forward. So this is, I think, the coupling of all three of those, we're going to see just huge change here for the good, right? In terms of not just buying the big end products like rockets, but also that supplier base, the control systems, as well as the infrastructure, and just this overall push into R&D in general is just going to be great for all of those small companies in terms of the statistics we saw in the earlier briefings. So this is great for that smaller business ecosystem to get going here.
Dan, what do you think it means for Long Beach?
Well, one of the things I like about Long Beach is that Long Beach is big enough to be dangerous, but small enough to work together. You know, you're not losing each other. Like I can get to Lars's location in 10 minutes from ours, you know, so it's not too crazy. But we actually working with the city of Long Beach, it's convenient, it's comfortable. They're interested in trying to come up with better ways of doing things. And we were part of helping found the Long Beach Aerospace Council. So rather than look at it as me against the whole U.S. government trying to fund stuff, if we can find a way to work together, the city, the different companies, the Aerospace Council, the universities, and go after these budgets and have a bigger vision of not just, I need you to help me fund my project, but rather our project, I think that would be a great way to go about trying to get more money.
We've got about 5 or 10 minutes left. I want to talk a little bit about what the future looks like to you. What are some of the things that you're looking forward to seeing in the next 5 or 10 years, even the next year as we're starting to recover from the pandemic? What are the question that I asked our economists, what are some of the things that you would encourage city leaders to do to help your industry grow? What are some of the things that you need from our city? You've chosen Long Beach. What do you need to continue to grow here? What are some of the things that you need to continue to thrive? What excites you? What do you need to continue to grow? Lars?
Yeah, the earlier presentations by your economists were encouraging. It looks like we're emerging from the pandemic and on an upward slope. So that's all good news. So growth in the local economy, growth in the state economy, growth in the federal economy is all going to help pull us all along and on that upward trajectory. From a local perspective, from a city perspective here, making it a good business environment. And what we've felt, and this is one of the reasons we settled here, is it was a very welcoming business environment to establish our headquarters here. We saw in working with the city, different city government offices, whether it was permitting or licensing, a lot of the friction was reduced and minimized. Even during COVID, they made it very easy for us to get things done. And so we've been able to continue through various phases of building up our headquarters facility, and it enables us to do a lot more for all of our customers, commercial and government customers, going forward as a result. So they've really enabled us from an infrastructure perspective, but this tie into the local community with education and awareness of what's out there, what opportunities are out there. We'd like to hire more local talent. So the more types of events like this where you're getting the word out and pointing people in our direction is going to be an enabler as well. So those, I think, would be the two big areas that over the next 5 to 10 years will really help continue this growth that we're seeing just start.
Dan, how about you, sir?
I think that one of the things would like to see is continuing these type of discussions, bringing together all of the different parties. I spoke with someone earlier about, you know, the urban air mobility, advanced air mobility. Long Beach is very well located to become a central hub for that. So to make it easy for people to get in and out of the air, whether it's from the suburbs into Long Beach or from Long Beach into LA, and mentioning infrastructure. So looking at ways to make it easy for those air taxis to land and take off, and see if we can make accessibility, more renewable energy. That's an area that I think Long Beach is leading. I'd love to see more of that, just because there's an electrification in a lot of the transportation, whether it's ground vehicles. So going back to making sure that it's easy for cars to recharge, or electric, even flying cars to recharge. So things of that nature would be very cool to see.
Excellent. Mandy, how about you? As you're looking 5 or 10 years out, what does the landscape in Long Beach look like to you? What would you like to see happen as you're continuing to advise and accelerate the pace of the companies that you work with? What do you need? What would you like to see?
I'm loving all of everything you guys said, and the only other thing I would add is it's a Long Beach thing, and it's a national thing too, but really getting into the schools. We really need to get into the schools at the university level and the high school level to say, hey, the space ecosystem, the aerospace ecosystem, there are jobs for you. Whether it's STEM or it's policy or it's graphic artists, we need everybody to take a roll up in this because it's one where we just don't have enough people coming into any of these trades. So I think that would be my one ask of between K through 12 and then also in the colleges, how can we get some people some hands-on experience, have them get exposed to this and realize that, hey, there's a lot and there's a role for you in any one of these companies right here. And a super exciting role too.
Yes.
And if you need a test pilot for the UAV, for airmen, let's go.
You know someone?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
How about hypersonic travel?
Ooh,
Would that be
that'd be fun.
interesting? Yeah.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of change recently out at the Long Beach Airport. The closure of the C-17 plant and the Globe Master Plan, the development of Douglas Park, the shift of Gulfstream creates a lot of opportunity. There's been a lot of development out there. There's a lot of opportunity for new development. Let's talk about the airport for a minute because it is. We spoke earlier in the panel about. It creates an opportunity to do things that you can't necessarily do at LAX. You certainly can't do it at Orange County, at John Wayne. What is the benefit of Long Beach Airport as a facility, as an innovation hub, as a place to do what your companies are doing? What does the future hold out there?
So I've told a few people this, but driving to work every day is an adventure. Yeah, coming up the 110 down the 405, I feel like I'm Mad Max on the way in every morning. But it's funny, as I start turning into Long Beach Airport, it's like I've just entered Innovation Disneyland. It just opens up, and Douglas Park is kind of symbolic of that. But as you look around and see the names on the buildings, you realize this is special, this is magic, this is growing. The Long Beach Exchange, that whole area is just a very nice environment for all of our employees. They can walk down the street, they can get a great lunch, they can relax a little bit. So the whole environment there is welcoming and fostering this kind of growth and this kind of innovation that all of us are very excited about. On another level, the ease of getting in and out is something that people notice too. I've had new hires that say, look, I can fly right in, even if I'm working remote from somewhere else, I can fly right in, I can stay right here 10 minutes away, and I can get back and forth to work very easily. You can't find that everywhere, and it's a benefit of being right there on the airport property or near the airport property.
I think the logistics coming in and out, that's only going to become more important. Yeah. As we're all starting to see more of the launch vehicle companies, satellite manufacturers, like, hey, let's move our stuff to, because we're going to be flying and having operations all over the world. We can just do that right here from Long Beach. And so it just makes the logistics footprint for any of these companies a lot easier, more streamlined. So it's a great location.
So, we spend a lot of time talking about the marquee companies, the companies with the signs on the side of the giant buildings at Douglas Park. But there are all the other companies in the supply chain. As we do wrap up, I do want to talk about the other firms that are in your supply chain, about what's in the white space in the industry that's hard to fill, that there are dozens and dozens of other companies besides just the big companies in the space. Dan, talk about that, about the supply chain a little bit, if you guys can weigh in as we do start to wrap up, about the rest of the ecosystem besides the giant facilities that are out at Douglas Park, that it's so much more than just a handful, that it is a much broader success story here in Long Beach.
So I would say we're actually part of the supply chain. I mean, we help companies like Rocket Labs or others, make better products faster, cheaper, whatever, higher quality. And we rely on a bunch of companies locally, whether it's machine shops or avionics companies, or even our own network of people who we know, who we used to work with, which we can rely on a materials person or a fracture mechanics person that we can reach out to and just bring them in for a specific project. One company that one of the space companies that relocated here actually came here because of the lack of composite technicians where they originated from it in the Bay Area. And so just knowing that if you come here, if you can't find someone, maybe your neighbor knows someone and they can refer them to you. So that's a thing that we're trying to continue to grow, both in terms of quantity and quality, but also to be able to share that information and learn from each other, which is happening just because there's so many rocket companies here. They're bound to be able to meet over a beer at Long Beach Exchange and say, hey, let's talk about composites, so yeah.
Lars, Mandy, any final thoughts as we wrap up?
Yeah, you were talking about the next 5 to 10 years, and it's timely. Right now, the world is turning their focus to the Olympics in Tokyo this summer, and there's a lot of questions and controversy, but it's going to ultimately become the Summer Olympics that we all love to watch and draws the world attention. In 2028, we're going to have host the Olympics here in LA again for the first time in a long time, I think since 1984. And I remember those Olympics and how exciting that was. So I see that as an opportunity for LA and Long Beach to really get a global stage to put their best face forward and best foot forward and show the world what we're doing here on Space Beach or Silicon Beach or the whole local area here. It's just a very exciting and vibrant environment that we have here. And according to our economists, we're on an upward trend, so let's continue that. And that's within the next 5 to 10 years, so that's a very exciting time to be here.
Mandy, you get the last word.
This has been fun. So no, it's fun. But no, I think it's Long Beach is in a great spot, but it is also one where there's a role for everyone in the space and in the aerospace sector, and there's a good role for everyone right here. Mm-hmm. So whether you're, again, the graphic designer, policy engineer, we need you, and there's exciting jobs, and we're really looking to transform the industry and deliver some amazing capabilities that we all use and need every day. So
Thank you.
Come join. Yeah.
Mandy Vaughn, CEO and founder of GXO Inc., Dana Beer, Director of Sales and Marketing at M4 Engineering, and Lars Hoffman, Senior Vice President at Rocket Lab. I'm sorry I didn't offer you any of the astronaut ice cream or the moon cheese, but you're welcome to take some with you. Really, I mean, they're surprisingly delicious. If not, I'll take them home to my kids.
How are the carbs on it?
I don't know, but it's got a shelf life of years to go.
Yeah.
That's going to do it for us here at Accelerate Long Beach, the quarterly economic forum from the Long Beach Economic Partnership. For all of us at the partnership, our chair, Randall Hernandez, and the entire board, everyone here for the City of Long Beach, California State University of Long Beach Office of Economic Research, our economists here at the Long Beach Post and the Long Beach Business Journal, the Studio LBP team, Dennis Dean, Stephen Smith, thank you to everyone. We'll leave it at that. Go Long Beach.